Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another video and hope you guys are doing well today. And I want to talk to you about my Twisting Blades Trapper Rogue build. So this was the build that carried me from around 70, 80-ish to endgame, all the way through to level 100, pushing Nightmare Dungeons, my attempts currently on Echo of Lilith, and all that good stuff. So this is the build I've played and I've sworn by it. I genuinely think this is one of the best Rogue builds currently out there and it's probably what I'll be playing on my road come season one, especially into the late game. So let's talk about it. I'm going to go over the skill tree just briefly and talk about what we've got and why. So we're running puncture with enhanced puncture and fundamental puncture. Now we do actually use puncture just every now and again if we need a vulnerability up on a target it's not, or if we are low on energy, which can happen with this build. So it's quite nice to have. You can also run the aspect, which gives you 20% damage reduction on with the basic skill. I'll talk more about aspects and stuff in a bit, but that is an option. Going down then, obviously Twisting Blades is the core amount of damage in our build. So we run Twisting Blades with Enhanced Twisting Blades and Advanced Twisting Blades. Now this gives us a lot of cooldown reduction, as well as obviously significant amount of damage. And that gives us our traps back pretty quick as well. We're also running Sturdy for the damage reduction and Siphoning Strikes for the healing. Now, Siphoning Strikes is actually one of the probably most underrated skills, in my opinion, of this build. And I'll explain why later, but it's to do with Temerity. We also have one point in Starter Step. It's not bad. It gives you a little bit of movement speed. The truth is, like at this point, there's nowhere else you'd really put it. But it definitely is a flex point. If you find somewhere else that you'd like a spot, like a point, you definitely can do that. Going down, then you have Shadow Step. Now, I was so hesitant to use Shadow Step. I didn't want to use it. I liked the idea of Dash. It gave me a lot more freedom. But Shadow Step, having that unstoppable, is so good. And I use it as a damage tool in terms of me engaging on one target, Shadow Stepping to another, and all my Twisting Blades following me. I use it as a CC escape, using obviously Unstoppable. I'm just dancing out of things. It's so good, and now that I've got used to it, it's probably one of my favorite rogue skills. We're running Enhanced Shadow Step for the increased critical strike chance, and Methodical Shadow Step for the stun, both of which very good. Now we're running Weapon Mastery here, one of the strongest passives in the entire tree. I believe it's third strongest in terms of how much damage it actually adds. You want to be using swords for this build, and you also want to be using crossbows for this build, just because they're the best implicits and weapon mastery combinations. So yeah. We then have Concussive. After knocking back or knocking down an enemy, you gain 12% increased critical strike chance. Now, I believe one of these, there we go, when you critically strike a dazed enemy, they are knocked down. So we do daze as part of the build every now and again, and as part of one of our aspects. So there is a good chance that we're going to be triggering this quite a lot. Your evade cooldown is reduced by 0.5 seconds when you daze an enemy. So again, does happen quite often. Pretty nice. Go down here then. Now, here's where things start to get a little bit interesting in terms of what you pick. So the ones that I would recommend you definitely go for as part of this build. Poison Trap, and more for the cooldown reduction it gives you later on through another passive, but Poison Trap nonetheless. And Enhanced Poison Trap knocks down enemies. So more CC. Again, it's going into this idea of we knock down an enemy, we gain 12% critical strike chance. So we're pretty much always critting late game. We also want Exploit and Malice. Now, Malice is huge. It's, I believe, our biggest damage increase from the passive skills just generally. So very strong. Now, I go for Concealment. I bring Concealment for a couple of different reasons. One, because we play Inner Sight, so I can actually stealth up to the mob that has the Inner Sight. I open on it, I don't have to get to them, which means I can proc my Inner Sight very quickly and use that to blow up a pack. It also gives Unstoppable, also gives movement speed, and you can move through enemies. So there's lots of reasons why Concealment is very good, and it's also a good 1-point skill. You don't need to take Enhanced Stealth or Countering or Subverting. You can just run Concealment. You can also run Smoke Grenade. You can also run Dark Shroud. There are so many different options here that you have a choice. So me personally, I've run Concealment, and I'll be sticking with Concealment. That for me feels best. Dark Shroud, lets you down when you most need it. I think after you've taken a couple of hits and suddenly you have no damage reduction, when you're relying on that 50% or 40%, it can feel really bad. We then go down to the imbuements. Now, I want to play around with imbuements, and my next build will heavily play around imbuements, but this build just doesn't run them. So we're going to be running Deadly Venom. You deal 3% increased poison damage. It isn't a poison damage build. But we will be afflicting poison damage through poison traps. So, alchemical advantage. Again, you gain 1% increased attack speed for every enemy you've poisoned. It's pretty nice. You can gain a lot of benefit out of it in packs. Just lots of attack speed just gives you that bursty profile. And then finally, debilitating toxins. Poison enemies deal 15% less damage. So you want to make sure you be dropping this poison trap on elite packs and things like that. Anything you're killing should be poisoned. In an ideal world, anyway. Now we go down to the ultimate. So I'm going to go over the passives first. Adrenaline Rush is just. Sorry, I'm getting a text, which is very, very annoying. So Adrenaline Rush is while moving, you gain 5% increased energy reduction. It's not fantastic, but we use it as a filler to get to haste. While at or above 50% energy, we gain movement speed. While below 50% energy, we gain attack speed. Both very, very good things. Aftermath, after using an ultimate skill, which we'll be doing quite often, restore 50 energy. Now, I find that 75 energy here is actually too much. You overcap energy and it's just wasted. So 50 is absolutely fine for what you'll need. We go for Trap Mastery. When Poison Trap or Death Trap activates, you gain 12% increased critical strike chance against vulnerable and crowd control enemies. Now, we're going to be making pretty much everything we hit that's in a trap vulnerable. We're going to be knocking them down. So we're already at 24% increased critical strike chance. We have near 100% critical strike chance when we are fighting trapped mobs, which is insane. We also have innovation, up to 30% chance to gain 8 energy. Now, there is a couple of lucky hit items in this build, and it isn't a bad stat. Finally, we have Death Trap. So, place a trap that arms after 0.5 seconds, pulls everything in via Prime Death Trap, and reduces the cooldown if it kills an enemy. Now, you will get this pretty much every fight, maybe every other fight. In a Nightmare Dungeon, I have this up for every pack, and that's just insane. Like, you pull everything in on top of a poison trap, so you gain all of that bonus. They're all poisoned, and you can just shred through packs. And finally, then we run Exposure. So, dealing direct damage to an enemy afflicted by a trap skill has up to 25% chance to reduce the active cooldowns of your trap skills by 20%, or explode stun grenades that deal damage and stun them. So either one, brilliant. So that's the build in general. I'm going to go briefly over the Paragon tree. So we're going for Closer in our first one. We then go up to the Deadly Ambush one. Again, more damage to trapped targets. And we are using Diminish there. We then go over to Cheap Shot, which will be up all the time, extra 25% increased damage. Into Combat. We don't take Tricks of the Trade here because we're not using the Cutthroat and Marksman. But we do use Turf here for some damage reduction. And again, picking up these nice, juicy rare nodes. And we don't pick up No Witnesses. I do want to try No Witnesses, but I don't think it's going to be very good. And we run Exploit here. So lots of damage that comes from our Paragon tree. Now, in terms of stats, I'm going to go briefly over my items. My helmet is about as good as I'd like it to be. Dex, cooldown reduction, life, armor. Perfect. That's how I would want it. And we are running the damaging an elite enemy grants you a barrier. It just gives us that survivability when we're getting into a pack, because we can just insta-die if we play wrong. We're then running a chest piece, damage percentage, damage reduction, armor, and cutthroat skill damage. Not my ideal chest. I would actually prefer like damage reduction while poisoned, or closer, or life, and armor, and maybe percentage damage, maybe dex or something. But yeah, I feel like this chest could be a lot better than what we have currently. My gloves, I'm very, very happy with my gloves. I just wish that crit strike chance was a little bit higher. We have 5.3% critical strike chance, 12.3% lucky hit chance, which is giving all your lucky hit stuff, traps and things like that, a much higher return. 14.4% attack speed, which is just great for this build. Attack speed is really, really nice. And then plus 4 ranks of Twisting Blades. Now, again, this is what I was talking about before. Dealing direct damage to a vulnerable enemy has up to a 45% chance to daze them for 2 seconds. Everything we hit is going to be vulnerable, which means you're going to be dazing a lot, which is great. Now, I personally am running Temerity currently. I think I'm going to drop them soon and try something else. But specifically as a pair of unique trousers that can drop pretty much any time you get into Ascended content, or Ancestral content, sorry, it's a very good set of pants. And you will find that Siphoning Strikes alone, so Siphoning Strikes and your potions, if I just pop a potion here, you can see I'm already running 11k. Is it just not going to give me a barrier? It's just not going to give me a barrier. Of course, game. Let's pop another potion. There we go. So like with a potion pot, I can easily sit around like 16k effective health just between life and temerity, which is really, really nice. And again, when I'm talking about that ability to be insta-killed if you misplay, that really does help prevent that. I'm also running Pentient Greaves. I've had these since, again, you can see 74. It's not the greatest roll in the world, but the 10% increased damage to chilled enemies rolled well, and that's what we want. I mean, ideally, if that movement speed was like 25% as well, would be great. Everything else I don't really care about on it, but the 10% damage and the movement speed would be great. It's a shame about the implicit. I would like the increased dodge implicit, but I don't think that actually comes on these greaves, on the boots even. My crossbow is insane. So dex, vulnerable damage, critical strike damage, core skill damage. The perfect crossbow. Like literally, that is what you want. In terms of my weapons, then I have dex, crit strike, core skill, and vulnerable. Again, same. You'll notice a pattern here. And I'm running the. Oh, sorry, I didn't talk about the aspect. This is just the twisting blades aspect. You'll want to get it as quick as possible for this build. It's just a core part of it. You then go over to the one of your weapons. Making an enemy vulnerable has up to 50% chance to grant increased critical strike chance. Now, you add up all the extra multipliers of critical strike chance we've had in the build, and the fact that we are just naturally running 32%, we can quite easily sit around that 70-80% chance to crit, which is insane. And again, I'll talk more about my stats in a second. Second weapon, I haven't managed to roll core skill damage. It just doesn't exist for me on this weapon. So Dex, damage to poison enemies, vulnerable, crit strike damage. It works. Like I said, in an ideal scenario, I would say this is the weapon that you'd want. In terms of my rings, then, so vulnerable, crit strike damage, crit strike chance are your core things that you're rolling. After that, I've rolled damage to enemies affected by trap skills, which is pretty nice. However, there are so many other things you could do. You could go for, oh god, life. You could go for resource generation, attack speed, damage to poison, just percentage damage. There's just so many different options. On my other one, then we've gone for damage to poison, vulnerable, crit strike chance, crit strike damage, and 1 out of 4 of your primary resource when you crowd control an enemy. Now, I've still never seen this actually drop. I've had to literally go and do the dungeon and imprint it. It's so good because you daze so often, you knock down so often, it gives you so much energy back, but I've just not seen a better roll. Once I see a better roll of this, the whole build will just feel a lot smoother. On this one, we're using an agility skill, which is... Why am I using this? I might actually change that. There was a reason I was using this, but I'm not actually sure I like it. I may actually switch this to the basic attacks grant damage reduction. And then my necklace. So Malice, passive, which is great. Damage reduction while poisoned, and damage reduction from close enemies. Very, very, very heavy damage reduction necklace, which is what we like. And dealing damage to enemies affected by your trap skills have a 75% chance to make them vulnerable, which is great. So I'm going to literally just play a quick video which just shows kind of a little bit of what I was talking about in terms of the gameplay. So again, you can see this is the world boss in the PvP area. We've dropped both traps underneath him, already got our poison trap back up, and you can just see the amount of damage that we put out on this thing. And my build is not optimized. It's not the best geared in the world. It can get a lot better. I do also have Shira's Kanjar, the unique dagger. Hits with this weapon increase your attack speed by 5% for 4 seconds, up to 25%. I may actually run that a little bit more. I don't like the stats on the weapon, but the increased attack speed is just crazy. So this was what I was talking about. If I just go back just ever so slightly here and talk about this pack. So I see that there's a fortify or damage reduction mob, so I'm going to go in. I'm going to build up 2 or 3 twisting blades and then dash through the pack, group them all up, and they literally just insta die. Like, that is the build in a nutshell. It's so, so good. I'm going to go around. I believe I do it to this pack as well. So again, we hit 2 or 3 mobs, dash through, everything gets exploded, lots of cooldown reduction, and obviously on mobs that lived just ever so slightly longer, you'd get more cooldown reduction, but you can just see how broken it is. So I'm going to leave this here, guys. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. More build guides coming, especially in the build up to Season 1. I'm going to be trying another build very shortly, which is actually ranged. And yeah, thanks for watching. Catch you later. Bye.